So I am honored to have on a Chargers podcast and YouTuber. Is it okay if I call you Dan W? I'm gonna call you Dan W.
Let's go with it. That's fine.
I feel like calling you Dan W. I have Dan W on from Chargers YouTube community and podcast community. How are you doing today?
I am doing good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. And I'm doing well myself. So the people on my channel obviously know who I am. But for the people that aren't Chargers fans and are Washington fans that are going to watch this video, let the people know who you are.
Yes, thank you. My name is Dan. I am a co-host of Chargers Unleashed. We have a podcast that talks all things Chargers, trying to be authentic, trying to be refreshing, but also trying to be real. I've had a ton of special guests and players and analysts. So looking forward to this week. It's going to be a fun matchup. We just saw football yesterday, which was so refreshing to see. And this is a juicy matchup between two teams that are both on the rise. Great matchups across the field. New coach, new quarterback. It's gonna be a fun one.
Yep, and definitely, and it's crazy that I actually want to kick it off about last night's game. How does it feel to have football? I mean, I stepped outside today, and it's just something about September. It's just the air smells different. It just smells like football. And yesterday, I watched that game ever so closely, even more than I normally would, because division rival Dallas Cowboys was playing, and it's always a good day when the Dallas Cowboys lose. However, I do have to admit Dak Prescott looks amazing, man. And he played very, very well. And if he plays like this all season long, man, he can be not just a comeback player of the year finalist / winner, because he's gonna win it regardless. He can be an MVP caliber quarterback. And he put on a performance like that yesterday, going toe-to-toe with the GOAT Tom Brady. Now, I do want to ask you before we get into our game, was it a pass interference?
They're not going to call that at that point of the game. I probably would err on the side of pass interference, but look, when you give Tom Brady a minute and a half left, down less than one score, like you're asking for it. And I commend Dak Prescott. I commend their Cowboys defense for holding them as much as they did that second half. But as soon as that went through the uprights, which everybody was kind of wondering, is their line is actually even going to make it? But as soon as I went through the uprights, I looked at the clock and I was like, nope, this is not happening. And so even if they didn't get that offensive pass interference, like they're still going to be in field goal position. So look, that's just the GOAT being the GOAT. Unfortunately, you just got to be able to accept the fact that he is who he is. And when he saw that look at the end of the game, like it was over.
Yeah, and I agree with you totally. Like, and I'm not even being biased. I know a lot of Dallas fans are going to think I'm being biased. No, you had multiple chances to put away this game. Greg Zuerlein missing multiple field goals. If he hit just one, you guys, I don't know if I want to say win the game, because again, you left Tom Brady with a minute and 26 seconds of that is way too much time with Tom Brady. So again, Dallas lost, and of course, I enjoyed that. So to get into our matchup, I want to talk about the injuries. For us, Washington, we don't have much injuries, but we do have one, and that is a major, major injury and a major, major blow. Our wide receiver, our new free agent signing, Curtis Samuel, has been put on short-term IR, dealing with a groin injury, and he's been dealing with this since May for about 5 months now, and he's haven't been able to get it right, and now he is on short-term IR. Looking at you guys, I seen yesterday, I think Brian Bulaga was on the injury report, but more importantly, the biggest name on that list, running back Austin Eckler, dealing with a hamstring injury. I know a lot of Chargers fans, when I was looking, saying that he wasn't really dealing with no injury throughout training camp, and this is like something that just happened out of nowhere. So any update on Austin Eckler at this time? Is he good to go, or like is he questionable? And if he's questionable, is he leaning more towards playing, or is he leaning more towards doubtful or game time decision? Any update on Austin Eckler at the moment?
Yeah, so a very important piece of this team, Austin Eckler, has been dealing with a mysterious hamstring injury the last couple of days. As soon as it came out and was reported, I want to say there was like maybe 3 hours prior, there was video of Austin Eckler, how like hyped up and how excited he was for the season and ready to go into year 5. Then that injury comes up. Fast forward, he was did not practice back-to-back days. Then today, he was limited in practice, so he was back out there. I believe Coach Staley has said that they are optimistic that he can play on Sunday. I personally have zero doubt that he's going to play on Sunday. The guy is one of the strongest men pound for pound in the entire league. We have seen him deal with much less. And so when you see him walking out the field with smiles, even if he's not playing full speed at the time, like the guy's going to be out there. Brian Bulaga was full practice, wasn't even on the injury report today. So other than the somewhat injured Austin Eckler, which we'll see how injured he is come Sunday, the Chargers are pretty healthy. This is the healthiest they have been going into a season since I can remember. And there's a lot of pieces on this team. And it's an exciting time to be a Chargers fan, but also for you guys. You got the reigning defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, excuse me. And look, you guys got some playmakers, man. It's going to be a fun matchup.
Yeah, and definitely, I can say the same about my team here. This is the healthiest I've been, or we've been, going into a week 1 matchup. Curtis Samuel is obviously a big blow, but other than that, we are clean. So I want to jump straight into my questions that I have for you. And it's funny that you brought up you guys' new coach, Brandon Staley here. I want to get your early reaction and early impressions of Coach Staley. I want to ask you, what is your early impressions of Coach Staley?
I got to tell you, this Chargers fan base has had its experiences with some coaching that has been, let's just say, questionable. And it has plagued this team, especially over the last few years. We've seen questionable timeouts, unable to execute. We've seen players make mistakes, coaching make mistakes. And it got to the point where last year it was actually laughable. And we heard folks on TV laughing, like analysts laughing at the coaching staff for how it's executing. Brandon Staley, when he came in about a week prior to when the Chargers actually hired him, I had gone out and said, I think Brandon Staley is the most innovative option for this Chargers team to go get, given his lifeline and how he kind of came to where he is now. And he has not disappointed since he's come in. He has taken it by the reins. The man is so authentic. He is one of the smartest coaches I've ever seen. The man knows defense. He played quarterback when he was in college, so he knows how to play quarterback, and he actually coaches through the quarterback's eyes, even though he's a defensive coach at heart. And the entire team is bought in. We have seen the coaching staff he's brought around him, the players talking about doing things, quote unquote, our way, getting better 1% every day. There is no more of this lack of accountability on this team. The coach is probably as or more bought in than anybody else on this team. And I think the leaders of this team noticed that. So it was definitely refreshing for them to come on. And seeing Brandon Staley, it's been music to our ears, and has the Chargers fans probably more excited for a coach than I think I have ever seen covering this team.
Yeah, and definitely. And I have my questions put up in my notes here. So I do want to ask you, is this hype between Coach Staley and Anthony Lynn? Is it different, or like do you see some similarities as from when you guys first hired Anthony Lynn to Coach Staley? What's the vibe like compared to Anthony Lynn?
The vibe, honestly, is polar opposite. I remember when except for the fact that when Anthony Lynn was brought on, there was excitement for this fan base because it was a change. It was different than the previous coaching scheme. But Anthony Lynn was a player's coach in the sense that, like, he was a leader, but not from a football mind. Like, he was a leader of men, had the utmost respect from everybody in the locker room. But in terms of X's and O's and getting folks ready and prepared for game day, by the end of his tenure in LA, it just wasn't his job anymore. And he just wasn't executing. And so when Brandon Staley came in, immediately you had heard from everyone who he had coached previously, whether it's Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack. We've heard from Sam Acho. So many people have talked about how impressive he is as a coach and how smart he is and how he builds his entire team off of relationships and gets everybody bought in because he's bought in. And so the energy around this coach is polar opposite in the sense that for the first time in I don't know how long, Chargers fans feel like we are not going to be outsmarted in the coaching department. So many times we felt we were losing because of the coaching, and we're winning in spite of it. In this sense, in this regime, it feels like Brandon Staley has brought a whole new energy, making playing fun, makes everything kind of energetic again. And I think it's very refreshing for this fan base. And you see it from the players. We've interviewed a ton of players on our show that are on this Chargers team. And so many people, when we ask about the difference between this year and last year, they point to Brandon Staley. That's one of the things. They'll point to Brandon Staley. They'll also point to, of course, Derwin James being healthy. But Brandon Staley just injects so much invigoration and so much energy that this fan base has just been really, really hoping for. And so far, he's hit out of the park. I don't know of a single Chargers fan who does not like what they see from Brandon Staley so far.
Yeah, and that's great for you guys. And moving on to my next question, I want to ask you here. With Coach Staley not playing his starters or majority of his key players in the preseason, are you a little bit worried about that affecting you guys week one versus us? Because like I said, he didn't play most of his key players. Keenan Allen had a press conference and he basically said no, it's like we're playing football again. So I don't think there's gonna be any rust. But do you think it's going to be any rust maybe in that first quarter because they didn't really have any game action in the preseason?
To be honest, some might think that, and then you go back and you watch last night and you see Dak Prescott, who had played 0 snaps and absolutely balled out.
Mhm.
Uh, no, if there's anybody who has watched kind of the history of this Chargers team, they have had so many issues with injuries. And so Brandon Staley came in like hell bent on making sure that we go into this season as healthy as possible. And if that means not playing some of our key starters, so be it. Not that not all of them have played. Like some of them have played. We've seen everyone play during training camp. We saw most people play in the exhibition game against the 49ers before preseason started. But at the end of the day, like Derwin James doesn't need to show us anything before we get to the regular season. Like Justin Herbert is Justin Herbert. And thankfully and luckily for us, the Chargers have dudes on both sides of the ball. And I would argue, I know how good the Washington football team defense is, but like if Justin Herbert and company on offense versus Chargers, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, the Kenneth Murray, Drew Tranquil, Chris Harris, Nazir Adams, like there's so many stars on both sides. I don't necessarily know if they need to go up against any more stiff competition than what they already have. Now, that being said, by the end of training camp and end of preseason, I think one of the things that was kind of apparent, both players and coaches alike, for the first time that I ever can remember, came out of this preseason and training camp basically saying they got the most out of it that they possibly could, and they're ready to go up against a different jersey. And that's all you could ask for, is for a team to be ready to move on, not just feeling like they're having to because of the time. And so I'm not worried about it at all. And I would take, even if they do end up being rusty for a quarter, I would take a rusty Derwin James for a quarter than one that is not playing for the year 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, and we were in that same boat too. Now we played our starters in a little bit in the first two games, but in the third final game versus the Ravens, we didn't play none of our starters. And me personally, from a health standpoint, I was happy. From a entertainment standpoint, I was really, bored because I mean, obviously I know the back end of the roster, but like these guys aren't gonna make the roster. Like, come on now. But yeah, so we were in that same boat, and I was happy from a health standpoint because we got out of preseason healthy. But for obviously, like I said, from an entertainment standpoint, it was pretty boring. Now that we have fans back in the stands, and word on the street is that FedEx Field is sold out for this game versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And I could tell you from a Washington football team fan, this is probably the first time ever, not ever, but like in the wow, that the stadium has been sold out. We went from 2019 through 13 season at the Jets game where people are chanting "sell the team" to Daniel Snyder, and you could still have people saying that because Daniel Snyder is obviously not a likable person for his past. But now we fast forward a year and a half later, Ron Rivera, off a year one, off of a division title, he changed the culture, man, and people are starting to buy back in that fast. So this leading me to my next question. Are you worried about Justin Herbert a little bit because he didn't play with, if not fans, he played with a little bit of fans last year? Do you think he's going to be affected by the crowd noise a little bit? How are you thinking your quarterback Justin Herbert is going to fare with now playing against a packed stadium for the first time in his National Football League career?
It's an interesting question, and I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm worried. I mean, he's played in front of packed crowds at the Rose Bowl. I mean, he's played in big games before, and he's balled out during those. And the one thing about Justin Herbert is nobody is going to prepare more than him. He's always the first one in, last one out. His study habits are unreal. We've heard many coaches and players kind of rave about how he prepares for the game. But the thing I like about Justin Herbert is the moment doesn't seem to ever be too big for him, regardless of what it is, whether it's at the press conferences, whether it's at the game, at the end of the game, whether it's talking with other players. He just seems to have this aura of calm around him that I don't think is going to be shaken by any sort of crowd issue. And in fact, I think the team is actually excited to go against an opposing team at their stadium. I think every football team probably enjoys the opportunity to be able to shut up the other team's fan base. Like that's all you can ask for. And so he kind of has this calm, cool, collected confidence that I don't think gets shaken by much. And I think he's very grounded in who he is and what he can do. And he's confident in his abilities. And you know, for all the people that were questioning his leadership skills or questioning if he had the it factor, they were wrong, point blank.
And definitely, I could remember last year they were, or after this past season, let me put it that way. A lot of people were saying, was Washington wrong for not selecting Justin Herbert and going with Chase Young? And
Would you have gone that way?
me personally, no. Would have been great for us. Maybe the reason why I say maybe is because look at what Justin Herbert, what it came into, the turmoil, the firing of President Bruce Allen. And I don't want to make a comparison because Justin Herbert blows Dwayne Haskins out the water, but you saw what Dwayne Haskins came into in 2019. That following year, yeah, we hired Ron Rivera, but everything wasn't set. Everything wasn't, it was just the start of things. And do I think Justin Herbert may would have been good with us? Yeah, I do. But I don't know if we were able to groom Justin Herbert the way he is getting groomed in LA. I'm glad we went with Chase Young, the hometown kid, the guy that's going to be the face of our franchise for many, many years. And no, I wouldn't change it for, the world, man, because Chase Young has been so good in a short span of time. Speaking of Chase Young, let's scroll down to my key matchups, and I want to get your thoughts on my key matchups here. Chase Young versus Rashawn Slater. We all know everyone wants to talk about how Rashawn Slater got the best of Chase Young in college, and I did a film breakdown on that a couple days ago, and he did. You know what I'm saying? I can't lie about that. I'll be 100% honest. He got the better of Chase Young. Fast forward 2 years later, Chase Young's a grown man. He's the reigning defensive rookie of the year. He has 1 year under his belt. I don't know if I would say that matchup would go the same way in Rashawn Slater's favor. Could be, maybe, because every premier pass rusher has their kryptonite. Maybe Rashawn Slater could be Chase Young's kryptonite, but I would beg to differ. How do you see that matchup playing out between Rashawn Slater and Chase Young this Sunday?
It's a fun question and it's a fascinating one. I think Rashawn Slater was asked about this during one of the recent press conferences, and he was basically like, look, that was a couple of years ago. Like, he's grown, I've grown, but I'm excited to go up against him. Like, it's a great matchup against one of the premier talents in the league. I'll take my chances with Rashawn Slater. Like, he's gotten a chance to go up against some great guys. I mean, he's every day in practice, he's going up against Joey Bosa, and he's fared pretty well. I'll never forget the first time that we saw him go up against Joey Bosa in practice. All of the beat reporters, everybody was kind of surrounded, waiting for it. And Rashawn Slater got the best of him. And everyone was like, oh, no, this is happening again. Here we go. And they were excited. The thing is, though, like, it's tough for these matchups because, for example, Rashawn Slater, Chase Young, go up against each other, 50 times? And Rashawn Slater could get the best of him 49 out of 50 times. But it's going to be on the highlight reel. If he gets a sack, is the one sack that Chase Young gets. So it's tough because I think both guys are going to look good at times. I wouldn't necessarily say one's going to get the better than the other. I think it's who can kind of keep the other person at bay the most without like those freak plays. Like, don't give up the strip sack. Don't give up like the pancake for you guys. Like, you don't want to see Chase Young get mauled over. We don't want to see Rashawn Slater get like a turnstile. Right. Otherwise, like, they're both good dudes. It's good on good, and let the best one win. And to be honest, like, I don't see that being where the game is won. It's a key matchup for sure. Right. But they almost kind of sort of take each other out of the equation, which I guess is kind of what you, as a Chargers fan, that's what you'd like. And as a Washington football team fan, you're hoping that Chase Young could get the better of him.
Right. Yep, and definitely, I mean, I agree with you on that front. I think it's a key matchup. I think it's for you guys. It's a position and a specific battle that can help you win that game or secure the W. for us, I do think it is a key matchup to where it can win us a game. I think this is a specific position where the game could change, and this could be the reason we win this game. Chase Young gets a strip sack and he beats Rashawn Slater hypothetically. That where I see it being a real battle and something that I think can help Washington win the game. Whereas with Rashawn Slater, it's more so trying to prevent that from happening. And then if you guys do prevent that from happening and you win the game, yeah, maybe somebody like you, because you're hardcore Chargers, you're gonna look at matchups like that. But regular fans, they're not gonna really look at Rashawn Slater being that guy that is responsible for the win. They're gonna look at Justin Herbert throwing 3-2 touch. I hope it doesn't happen, but we gotta be a rule over here. They're gonna look at the Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen connection more than a Rashawn Slater over Chase Young connection. So that leads me to my next matchup, and that I want to get your thoughts on. William Jackson versus Keenan Allen. Now, I said this in my video. William Jackson and Keenan Allen are two guys that get disrespected. They are two guys that are severely underrated at their specific position group, especially Keenan Allen. And I know you said you can't really predict how these matchups are going to go. However, me being unbiased, Keenan Allen's going to get the better of William Jackson, in my opinion. And I say that because Keenan Allen is so good. He's so criminally underrated. He's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He although for whatever reason it may be, is it because the Chargers is a small, market team or something like that, he's not getting the same recognition as a Stephon Diggs or Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins. He deserves it, man. And I think this is going to be a good battle. However, William Jackson, it's been reports that he's struggling trying to get used to Jack Del Rio scheme. William Jackson are one of the better man corners in all of football, and we're trying to get him to run some zone here. And it's going to be troubling for a new free agent to get the playbook down, and it takes time. But however, I think Keenan Allen's going to get the better of William Jackson. So how do you see that matchup playing out with Keenan Allen and William Jackson?
Well, first off, I think you are dead on with him being criminally underrated. Over the past 4 seasons, only one other wide receiver has gotten 95 or more catches in 4 straight seasons. It's Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins. Those are the 2 guys. That's it. Keenan Allen is always open. And I will say that till the cows come home. I'll never forget when I was going to a Chargers versus the Bills game, and I had a Bills buddy come with me. Keenan Allen went off for like 16 receptions. And I'll never forget my buddy just screaming, like, Keenan Allen in the slot. He's still open. And he's a Bills fan. Keenan Allen, he's never going to get locked up, to be honest. So what you hope for is you can kind of contain it. If you can keep him to like a 5 receptions, 80 yards, like I would call that a win for you guys. Right. But William Jackson's no slouch either. Like, you guys have a great defense. I think you gave up on average only 2 receptions of 20 yards or more last season per game, which I think was tied for the least, along with Brandon Staley's Rams of 2020. So right. There's a lot kind of riding on this, where it's kind of the clash of the Titans, and the Chargers know, like, they're going against a very good defense. This is arguably going to be the best front 4 or the top 3 to 5 defense in the league. We like to think that we have that as well when healthy, quote unquote. But look, this is going to be a tough game. Like, Keenan Allen is going to have to make some plays. I think Josh Palmer is going to be somebody to look out for as kind of a sleeper wide receiver. Look out for Jared Cook. I think he's a difference maker. And again, if Austin Eckler is playing, that guy's all over the field. I mean, I know how good Antonio Gibson is. I watched him, and he's one of my favorite players coming out of college at Memphis. Austin Eckler is that type of guy in terms of just creating plays and wreaking havoc on defense.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought up Austin Eckler. I know a lot of Chargers fans may beg to differ with me, but I feel like he's the motor of you guys' offense because he is so versatile. What I mean by the motor is he's going to make a big difference if he's in and out of the lineup. And I know you're probably like, that's obvious, but I feel like if you have an Austin Eckler in your lineup, he can do so much for you. As you brought up Antonio Gibson can go out wide, line up in the slot, play wide receiver, former wide receiver in college. And Austin Eckler can do the same. He's so versatile. It's you have those running backs like the Derrick Henrys who can catch a little bit, but he's more of just a pure running back and just a pure downhill runner. Whereas with Austin Eckler, he can do so much. He's like a running back and he's like a receiver. That's why I feel like he's you guys' motor on offense. Obviously, we know you have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Justin Herbert, Jared Cook, but I just think he's that guy for you that is going to run that offense, and he's the key player in that offense to get it going, because Justin Herbert's going to always need a check down buddy to go to, a guy that he needs, obviously hands the ball off to, and, get creative with in the backfield, and, split them out wide and stuff like that. So it's funny that you brought up Keenan Allen, or not Keenan Allen rather, but Austin Eckler, because I think he is you guys' number one key player to success, not only in this game, but this season. I want to move on to another matchup, and I had a lot of matchups I wanted to go over, but I'm just gonna, keep it to three most important ones. We have a rookie by the name of Samuel Cosmi. He is a right tackle. He came out of Texas as a left tackle, but can play right tackle in. And we have Charles Leno playing left tackle for us, so we moved him over to right tackle. Right tackle. Who's going to be over there? Who's going to be guarding him? One of the best, the premier pass rushers in all of football, Joey Bosa. And when I look at this matchup, I just hope my man Samuel Cosmi can just hold his own just for a little bit, because, man, it's going to be tough, man. Joey Bosa, like I said, is one of the best premier pass rushers in all of football. And I will be lying to you if I said I was not scared about this matchup. I think Joey Bosa is going to be living in the backfield. Good thing Ryan Fitzpatrick is a right-handed quarterback. You know what I'm saying? So his left side is his blind side. So he can see Joey Bosa coming at him, and he could probably get out the way. It may not work for a 30-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is limited with his wheels. Now, he can run a little bit, but he ain't getting away from no Joey Bosa. So I am a little scared with this matchup between Samuel Cosmi and Joey Bosa. So even though Joey Bosa doesn't really have any weaknesses, how do you think Samuel Cosmi could not really win this matchup, but, like you said with Keenan Allen, contain Joey Bosa?
To be honest, that's going to be tough. I saw a lot of Samuel Cosmi come out of college last year, and he was one of the guys we were looking at, because the Chargers, for our own sake, we completely revamped our offensive line. 4 out of the 5 guys last year are no longer on this team, and we've gone out and gotten a bunch of dudes to be able to replace them, and our offense is completely different in terms of the line. Now, looking at kind of how they could potentially contain Joey Bosa. Now, obviously, there's going to have to be some double teams where you have guys kind of help chipping, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a running back kind of helping out. Quick passes also can help. But the thing about this Chargers defense, this is one of the things that people are excited about with Coach Staley, is the Chargers are used to, in the past, we've kind of run this like cover 2, cover 3 scheme, and like it's been very vanilla. There hasn't really been much going on. Whereas now, like this Brandon Staley defense is extremely multiple. And so you'll see folks coming from all angles, different fronts, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-man fronts, where it might not be Joey Bosa. Like you could see like Joey Bosa, Uchenna Nwosu on the same side, or a Chris Rumpf, or a Kyler Fackrell, or a Kaiser White, or Jerry Tilley. There's so many different guys that can kind of interchange. And then you look at like the linebacker squad, where you have like a Kenneth Murray and a Drew Tranquil, where those guys can rush in the quarterback too. So I think that the one theme that we've seen with like the defensive front for the Chargers is they become more multiple and become more aggressive. And so look out for Joey Bosa 100%. But the thing I like about Brandon Staley's defense is it's not just the star players who perform. If you go back and look at the preseason or even look at training camp, there are guys on the bottom of the depth chart are the ones who are getting all the interceptions and pick sixes. They're standing out. That's because he puts folks on islands to perform and to excel, and doesn't just rely on folks to just go out there and do it on themselves. So it's going to be tough sledding. I don't want to sugarcoat it.
Hey, I know, and I'm praying for my man Sam Cosmi.
And don't forget about Derwin James, by the way. I have not mentioned him enough, but him coming and rushing the quarterback, Chargers fans have been so anxiously awaiting the return of Derwin James. The guy is an all-pro, arguably the best safety in the game, but has not been able to play. And seeing him back in preseason in terms of like training camp and OTAs, the dude is just something special. And he can play every position on defense, probably better than most in the league. And so, like, he straps up Keenan Allen all the time. You see them going back and forth with highlight reels.
Right.
Don't be surprised if you see Derwin James in the backfield.
Oh, trust me, I'm not. He's up there with Joey Bosa, as in people that I'm scared to face funny enough, I wanted Derwin James coming out of college in 2018. I would call it even a little bit only because we got Deron Payne out of that draft, and Deron Payne was so good for us last year. However, I really wanted Derwin James because I knew this guy was going to be such a game changer, and it sucked that he missed all of last year because I felt like he was going to be in for a big year. And I know he's going to be he's going to be disruptive for us. He's going to be a guy that we're going to have to look out for. I think, knock on wood, hopefully it don't happen, but I already have my mind set on it and my eyes seeing it. Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to give him one. He's going to give him one. We know Ryan Fitzpatrick is a turnover machine, and he's going to give him one, and hopefully he doesn't house it. Now, I want to talk about my last key matchup because, like I said, I had a ton, but I wanted to condense it into just 3 or 4. I want to talk about Antonio Gibson versus you guys' interior defensive line because I was talking with the Chargers Instagram fan page, and I asked them, I said, could you tell me you guys' biggest weakness? And I guess this is going to lead into my next question too, is you guys' biggest weakness head into week 1. I asked him and he told me cornerbacks and interior defensive line. And when you look at you guys' interior defensive line, it's 2 names that stand out to me, obviously, that being Linval Joseph and Jerry Tillery. How do you see Antonio Gibson faring against you guys' defensive line? I'm talking strictly for the interior part because I'll be brutally honest. I look at it and I can see you guys being gashed for about a $150 and stuff like that, just because I know how good Antonio Gibson could be. And I feel like that may be you guys' weakness, according to the fan page that I talked to, that's a Chargers fan.
Yeah, so it is interesting because I think if you talk to folks leading into training camp in the preseason, I think the 2 weaknesses, I wouldn't say corner, but I would say the 2 weaknesses or lack of depth were interior defensive line and a safety position. And the interior defensive line has actually been one of the pleasant surprises of training camp so far. Is it the quote unquote weakness of the defense? Maybe, but like it's not that much of a weakness. Now, we are expecting big things from Jerry Tillery. We've heard he had a really good camp. Linval Joseph is one of those immovable objects. Christian Covington is there. Chris Rumpf is there from the inside as well. There's a lot of guys on the inside that are hoping to get pressure. And we've seen guys get those pressures that we haven't necessarily seen in the past. So it might be the one I have most concerns of the defense. But given the fact that they have those guys, plus they have the linebackers who I think are going to be playing downhill and disrupting the line, I think they're kind of going to take it over for each other. So to be honest, if there's one concern the Chargers have for me, it would be stopping Antonio Gibson. Like, I'm not worried about Terry McLaurin as much as I am worried for your rushing attack. If we can get that done and make Ryan Fitzpatrick beat us, I like my chances.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not sure if Antonio Gibson's going to get $150 and whatnot. Maybe I got a little too ahead of myself. Maybe I saw shades of
he's talented enough. He's talented enough. The dude is unbelievable.
Yeah, and maybe I thought of shades of Dallas Thanksgiving last year where he just obliterated that Dallas Cowboys defensive line. And it's crazy that you talked about Terry McLaurin and how you're not as feared of Terry McLaurin as you are Antonio Gibson, because that is my next question for you guys. I believe it's Michael Davis who is most likely going to get the matchup against Terry McLaurin and shadowing him. I'll be honest, man. I know I've been scared of Derwin James, of Joey Bosa. I really never seen Terry McLaurin get shut down. And you're talking about a guy that went against Trey White his rookie year, against Jair Alexander his rookie year. Last year he went up against, a guy by the name of Trayvon Diggs who had a solid, game yesterday, and he doesn't deserve to be in a category with those guys. But I'm just naming some cornerbacks that he faced last year. Jalen Ramsey, when the Rams, so he faced some great cornerbacks. Not to mention that Dallas or that Pittsburgh Steelers defense last year. That's the only game where I seen Terry McLaurin get shut down, and it wasn't one person that shut him down. It was 3 people were checking Terry McLaurin that whole entire game. And do you blame him? We didn't have any other weapons. Cam Sims was a guy that was emerging for us, but he wasn't really scaring the Pittsburgh Steelers. We still got the win. But that leads me to my point here. Mike Davis, really good, arguably coming off of his best season last year. I do think Terry McLaurin is going to get the better of Mike Davis. Terry McLaurin is just so good, man. He's going to be a top 10 wide receiver in the future. And it's funny that, and I don't know if the reporter was getting a little too ahead of himself, but he said that a lot of people were saying Terry McLaurin has the route running of Keenan Allen. His route running is phenomenal. I'm not sure if I'm ready to say the route running of Keenan Allen. I can't remember who the reporter was, but I don't know if I'm ready to say he has the route running ability of Keenan Allen. It's really, really good. Don't get me wrong. He runs his route so good. He avoids getting hit when he's going down after making receptions. Don't know if I'm ready to say Keenan Allen route running yet, but I think he's going to get the better of Mike Davis. I know, like, I can't predict what's going to happen, but it's only fair. I gave you guys Derwin James and Joey Bosa, and I truly think this. Mike Davis is really good, but Terry McLaurin, man, he's on a whole nother level. And I think with him finally having a quarterback this year, he's going to actually prove that. This is a guy that had 919 receiving yards in his rookie year with Dwayne Haskins, Case Keenum as his quarterback. Then in 2020, he doubled back and got 1,000 yards his second year, and that's with Dwayne Haskins, with Alex Smith, with Taylor Heineke, and with another quarterback. I'm trying to think, who am I missing? Kyle Allen, who broke his ankle last year. That's all with, a quarterback change almost every week, if not every week, every 2 weeks. He finally is seeming, and hopefully he has a consistent quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think the league is going to get put on notice of who Terry McLaurin is really. And I think he could be in for a big day versus that secondary. Although that secondary is really good, don't get me wrong. I think Terry McLaurin could be in for a big day. How do you see that matchup of faring with Mike Davis and Terry McLaurin? Because assuming Mike Davis is going to be the one that's shadowing him, correct?
So a couple things. One, Terry McLaurin is one of the most underrated wide receivers and one of the brightest stars coming into the league. And the guy is unreal. I think he had like 87 receptions last year, 1,000 plus receiving yards. I really, really like Terry McLaurin. That being said, one of the things I am most excited for about this Chargers defense, I mentioned to you about kind of being multiple, and there's a few different players on this Chargers defense that are being schemed up to be positionless. So we've heard specific names like Asante Samuel Jr. We've heard like Chris Harris Jr., Derwin James, Nazir Adderley a bit. Mm-hmm. I would be shocked if Mike Davis is the one that is shadowing Terry McLaurin the most. I think you're going to see a healthy spread of everyone. I wouldn't be surprised if Asante Samuel Jr. ends up being on him and then say, screw it, Derwin James, go on him. Chris Harris in the slot, go on him. I think he's going to see a bunch of different guys. I think that's by design. I think if you give Terry McLaurin one guy to eat up, like, he'll do it eventually. Right. But the Chargers got a lot of guys that can go up against him. So do I think we're going to contain him? I mean, in the sense that is he going to get over 100 yards? I don't think so. If he does, like, good luck to us. But, like, we're not going to stop him. It's so hard to do that. Like you mentioned, he's gone up against guys that are very good already and has looked quite well against all of them except for Pittsburgh. But I really like the scheme that Brandon Staley has and Ronaldo Hill have for this Chargers defense. Mm-hmm. And it makes opposing offenses have to question everything.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny that you said that about Terry McLaurin getting 100 yards, because Terry McLaurin isn't a guy that gets to 100 yards in a game. And that could be due to the quarterback play. I'll be 100% honest. If you go back to the film of Terry McLaurin, and I don't want to sound biased when I'm saying this, but he's always open. Like, I'm being 100% honest with you. He's always open. It's a clip on the internet and if anybody out there want to go look it up, type in why Dwayne Haskins was cut. The play is going to show you why he was cut or why he was benched at the time. But Terry McLaurin was wide open. I believe it was against Baltimore. And this was early in the season last year. And it's going to tell you why he was benched, not why he was cut, but why he was benched. Terry McLaurin's wide open across the middle of the field. Dwayne Haskins is just staring. No pressure yet. He's just staring, and he doesn't give Terry McLaurin the ball. That being said, Terry McLaurin is always open. But let me say this. If just how you said, if Keenan Allen gets over 100 yards, it's going to be a long day for us. If Terry McLaurin gets over 100 yards, and I'm saying this more so because Keenan Allen getting 100 yards, I'm not surprised at it at all. Keenan Allen's so good. But Terry McLaurin doesn't get 100 receiving yards or in a game, and that's due to the quarterback play. Maybe can it happen this year? I'm more than certain it will at some point, but he's not a guy that gets 100 yards so often. So if he gets over 100 yards, I would more believe that it is a long day for that Chargers secondary because Terry McLaurin is a guy that doesn't, like I said, for like the fifth time already, he doesn't get over 100 yards so often. And I think that is set to change this year. But like you said, Asante Samuel Jr., Chris Harris, Derwin James, Michael Davis, you guys have so many weapons in that secondary that, especially with Curtis Samuel being out, that made you guys' job even more easier. Now, with that being said, let me put you on to some guys that are going to be underrated and not some guys that you may hear their names of and be like, who is that? I don't really know that guy.
Are you on the De'Ami Brown train?
Oh, I'm on the De'Ami Brown train. I that was my favorite pick out of all of our draft picks, and the number one overall draft pick for us, first round draft pick for us being Jamin Davis. I'm more hyped about De'Ami Brown than Jamin Davis. I'll be 100% honest. The upside on Jamin Davis is phenomenal, but De'Ami Brown, I see shades of Terry McLaurin in the guy. But with that being said, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, that is you guys' number one focus as our wide receiver room. Cam Sims is another guy who I think is going to be severely underrated this season. And with Curtis Samuel being on the IR for the first 3 weeks, he's a guy that could surprise you this Sunday. It can go off for probably 4 catches for 52 yards and maybe a touchdown just because he's so tall and you could just throw it up to him and he can come down with it in the red zone. He's a guy that could really surprise you. Logan Thomas. Man, how good is he? And he's only been on our team for 1 year, and he had a phenomenal year. I think honestly, he may be the guy that is going to be our leading receiver for us against you guys, because you guys are going to key on Terry McLaurin so much. And I know Derwin James could go up against tight ends, but Logan Thomas, man, the dude is so good. So he's another guy who I think may be the underrated target in the sense of you guys focusing so much on Terry McLaurin. Another guy that I want to talk about, Adam Humphries. Him and Fitzpatrick had that chemistry going back to Tampa Bay. He could be a guy that could be the underneath. And I look at him as the Cole Beasley, not from the talent standpoint, but from us having our own Cole Beasley, that little guy that's always going to be open underneath, that's going to be able to burst the screen or bust the screen for 15, 20 yards here and there. He's a guy that I think could be a surprise and, a guy that's not really been talked about and could be a guy that could really, give the Chargers secondary some trouble. However, the number one guy, you already said it, De'Ami Brown, man, he is going to be so good. Now, I don't know how much action he sees this Sunday. Now with Curtis Samuel being out, I think that may have risen a little bit. But Cam Sims is our Z receiver. Behind Curtis Samuel, it was Cam Sims. So Cam Sims is going to be our number 2 receiver with Curtis Samuel being out. But De'Ami Brown, man, he's going to be so good. And I just wanted to give you a little taste of our offense and a little, notes about our offense, because that secondary of the Chargers is really good. But we have some options and some offense and some talent and some guys that could really surprise you. I didn't even mention J.D. McKissick, who we could split out wide and use in the passing game a lot. However, before we get out of here, I want to flip it around. We talked about our offense versus you guys' defense. Let's talk about you guys' offense versus our defense, shall we? You have the reigning, defending, offensive rookie of the year, Justin Herbert. Man, how good is he? I think this guy is going to be so good this year. I've been seeing some betting odds of the guy possibly winning MVP. The guy has been thrusting himself. He's like the Kyler Murray of his second year. And the reason why I say that is because last year, and a lot of people had Kyler Murray, possibly being MVP caliber. And you can obviously see why, because DeAndre Hopkins. But I think Justin Herbert could really thrust himself in that conversation. Do I think he's going to win it? No, I don't. But the guy is so good. The upside is through the roof. When you look at our matchup versus you guys' offense, he's going to give us some problems. I would not be surprised if he gashes us as good as our defense is. I wouldn't be surprised if he gashes us for, let's say, 290 and 3 touchdowns and 15 for 30 or something around there. That's how good he is. That's how talented that offense is. Other than Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook, who's old, but he still can be a great red zone threat for you. Who are some underrated guys that I don't know, that a lot of Washington fans aren't really paying attention for, that we should look out for, and that could be a real problem for our defense?
Yeah, good question. So you mentioned Jared Cook. Just so you know, he's the only tight end right now who has had 6 touchdowns or more in the past 3 seasons, back to back to back. No other tight end has done that.
Mhm.
So yes, I think he is a red zone threat. But over training camp and preseason, both he and Donald Parham, our other tight end,
Mhm.
Donald Parham is 6'8", huge. Will probably be the biggest man on every field he's on this year. We had him on our show recently. He said he hasn't been the tallest man since like college. So every year since elementary school, he's been taller than every single person on the field. So
Mhm.
look for him to potentially break out. Another couple guys in the wide receiving core. You have Josh Palmer, our 3rd round pick out of Tennessee. He has been a very, very pleasant surprise for everybody this season, and the coaching staff has loved him so far this offseason. Jalen Guyton is the one who goes downfield. So if you see someone taking the top off the defense, it's probably going to be him. Don't sleep on Justin Jackson, who is our RB2.
Mhm.
Austin Eckler is obviously running back 1, but Justin Jackson, when healthy, is dynamic. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to stay on the field either during the season or during training camp. But
Right.
Justin Jackson could easily break it off, no problem. So those
Mhm.
would probably be the guys that I would look for underrated. I know Mike Williams to go get the 50-50 balls, more like 80-20 with him. Keenan Allen's always open.
90-10.
Yeah, but Jalen Guyton, watch out for him. If you see a 70-yard touchdown, it's going to be him doing it.
Mhm. So what about, and that prompts me to my last question about you guys' wide receiving core before we, go to the end of the show here. KJ Hill, he's a guy that I really wanted coming out of Ohio State. Why? Because Dwayne Haskins was our quarterback at the time. Terry McLaurin's another Ohio State Buckeye. And KJ Hill, I really thought was going to be really good. Could have been a really good fit for us. How's he panning out in Los Angeles? And could he be a guy that sees the fields Sunday?
He could. He was a 7th-round pick for us, and I remember at the time when we picked him up, it was like the steal of the draft, in my opinion. I was thinking, like, how did he fall in this much? And he was like the career receptions leader at Ohio State, and that's like the Ohio State.
Right.
And so he's a sure hands guy. He currently, I think, is in a fierce competition with Nazir Adderley to be the returner for this team.
Mhm.
So do I see there being that many plays called for him in offense? Probably not. He just hasn't gotten the chance to kind of go out there. I mean, there have been many times this offseason, even last year, where this has been the deepest wide receiving core that these coaches have ever seen. And so when we got rid of a Tyron Johnson, like folks were shocked. Everyone in charge of media was shocked that we got rid of him. But it just goes to show how important this wide receiving core is and how important special teams is for the bottom of the depth chart. Special teams is why KJ Hill is still on this team. If he didn't return punts, he wouldn't be on this team. So he's very fortunate in that fact. And also that folks didn't really outshine him from a special teams perspective. No one looked great on special teams, but he looked better than everybody else. So I think that's why he was chosen. I think he gives them the most chances to field punts correctly. But if you're a Chargers fan, you just want to see him catch the ball. Like, just catch the punt, no muffs, none of this special teams mistakes. Special teams has been an Achilles heel for this Chargers team. So just hoping to have just a clean day for special teams at KJ Hill.
Yeah, and I could say the same for us. Steven Sims is a guy that we really thought was going to take the leap in his second year, but he couldn't catch the ball last year. He couldn't field punts. He was dropping everything, and he got cut. I could say the same thing for this year. DeAndre Carter's a guy that is going to be our punt returner, and all I need is him for him to catch the ball. Because although I would love for the big run back for a touchdown or even set us up in good field position, just catch the ball. If we either take the ball at the 25 or the 20 or the 15, I'll take it. Just catch the ball. So we talked about it: offense, defense, special teams. Let's close out the show with some predictions here. We're both going to be as unbiased as possible, although I feel like I know how this is going to go. My game prediction for this Sunday: I have Washington winning this game. It's important that we win this game. I just think overall, you guys have a lot of talent. But overall, if you look at our roster, top to bottom, we have the overall better roster, in my opinion. The biggest question happens to be the biggest position, though, is quarterback. What is Ryan Fitzpatrick going to give us? Is he going to get Ryan Fitzmagic or Ryan Fitzpatrick? We need Ryan Fitzmagic in this game, and that's obvious. If we can get Ryan Fitzmagic, we're going to win this game. I think that's what we're going to get, and I have Washington winning this game, starting off 1-0. So I'm going to flip it over to you to close the show here, as unbiased as possible. Who do you have winning this game this Sunday, and why?
Oof, that's a good one. So we've gone back and forth on our show a few different times on how the outcome of this game could go. I'm gonna kind of take it a different direction as to why I see the team winning. If you look at offense versus defense and on both sides, I think the Chargers offense versus the Washington football team defense, I think that is like good versus good. And then if you look at the Washington offense versus the Chargers defense, I think the Chargers defense has a leg up on there a little bit.
Mhm.
Special teams, I feel like I honestly have no clue. Literally couldn't tell you. Ron Rivera, I love that man. I have so much respect for him. Brandon Staley coaching is kind of a wash too. Home field advantage, obviously, you guys, but you mentioned it. I think the X factor is the quarterback situation. And I think Justin Herbert is the guy where if we're down at the end of the game, if we need to go one score more to win, for whatever reason, like it just feels different with him. So I got the Chargers winning this, no surprise. I got the Chargers winning like 23-17. And look, the Washington football team is a good team. Both teams are going to be good. Both teams are vying for a playoff spot this year. I can almost guarantee it. I know how important it is for you guys to win this game because you already saw Dallas lose. Chargers got Dallas next week. And if we get Dallas next week, they're going to be hungry and pissed off. And so if we lose this one, that one's going to be even worse. So it's going to be a tough game either way. I can't wait. Tons of good matchups. Love the schemes on both sides. Can't wait to see Chase Young against Rashawn Slater. But I'm just excited to see football again, man. Chargers are playing. Washington football team's playing. What are you guys going to be called next year, by the way? What's your name going to be?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm a guy that doesn't care what the name is. Although there is the front runner out there being Red Wolves. I'm a guy that doesn't care what the name is. But I just want to see the rest of the fan base happy that really care what the name is. You stripped me of my name, Washington. Are words. I don't know if I can say the full name, so I'm gonna keep it safe. You stripped me of that. No name is going to ever be better than that name. So I could care less. I'm a fan of what's on the field, not what's on the side of the helmet anymore. Well, I mean, I guess I would be still, but at the same time, it's like if we're called the Washington, let's just say Bakers or something like that, I'm a Washington Baker fan because I'm a fan of what's on the field, what the coaching staff is like, what's in that locker room. I'm a fan of the players. I'm a fan of the team, regardless of what we're going to be called. I have no idea where we're going to be called, but man, it's going to be a great game Sunday, and I'm so excited and so pumped for this game. You guys have a tough division. So do we. But you guys have Patrick Mahomes in your division, the
Pray for
best
us.
quarterback in all of football. You guys have Derek Carr, who's severely underrated in my opinion, gets too much of the blame for the lack of success there in Las Vegas. We have Denver, whose defense is really good, and I'm not looking forward to playing those guys this year. And you guys, that AFC West is going to be very stacked. Am I missing someone? I feel like I am. I'm missing someone.
You got
Denver.
Justin Herbert. You got Denver. You got Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay. Yeah, nah. I was thinking, am I missing someone? Denver, LA, Raiders, and Chiefs. No, that was everybody. Okay, so I'm cool. So I do want to thank you for coming on to today's show. It means a lot to connect with different content creators across the world for different teams to get their aspect of their team. And I just want to thank you again for coming on. Make sure you guys go subscribe to not only the YouTube channel, but the podcast. You can find them on all podcasting platforms at Chargers Unleashed. Go over there and drop them a follow and subscribe to their channel. Hail to the Washington football team. Any last words do you have to say for the viewers out there?
No, thank you so much for joining. This has been awesome. This has been a blast. Can't wait for this game on Sunday. Again, you can find us at Chargers Unleashed on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. We're having fun out here, and we can't wait to see you guys on Sunday. Best of luck this season.
Thank you, man. Once again, thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and subscribe to Chargers Unleashed. Again, very good content over there. And of course, you guys know, subscribe to me for the best Washington coverage out there on YouTube. Thank you again, and have a good night.